All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'll pull the presentation back up here in a second, but if anyone's ever joined a webinar that I've done in the past, I just jump right in and I forgot to make introductions. So I definitely need to do that today because there are people watching and grading me, especially our marketing director. But today we want to talk to you a little bit about not only our Nanoliquid technology, but our company and getting really ready for the spring season that's upon us. So with that, Clark Bell, our CEO, is going to kick things off and give you a nice rundown of our company, some of the trajectory that we're on, where we've been, kind of give everybody, because we do have some new people on this Zoom, so we do appreciate that, kind of give everybody a good view and picture of where we're at and what we're up to. And then we're going to have Landon Bunderson join us, our chief operations organizer, manager, officer, all in one. And he's going to talk to us a little bit more about our technology. It's something that we know we need to just kind of keep talking about, keep it on top of your minds, because there's something new to learn every time that we do get together, talk with customers, new customers, you name it. So Landon's going to cover that. And then I've got one slide at the very end where I'm just going to kind of wrap things up and bring it all together as we head into our busy spring season. So that's the introductions. There is one other important message I do need to make an announcement on before I get a text message. We are going to have a drawing based on attendees on this webinar. So you can go to the, see, it's aquayield.com/webinar. and sign up for a giveaway. We're going to have 10 gallons of Nano-N Plus. So we will have a drawing for that. And we want to get that exciting product out to a lucky winner, just as another appreciation of our support or your support for our business. And also just to get you a really good tool to go ahead and go and you implement this spring coming up. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Clark Bell. Take it away, Clark.
Awesome. Everyone, so good to be with you here today. Happy April Fool's Day. Hopefully you all are like me. You had your kids dress up in slings today at school, and I thought they were really clever doing that. So kind of a fun day. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to provide just a quick background on AquaYield. As Jim Krebsbach previously mentioned, my name is Clark Bell. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of AquaYield. AquaYield, we position ourselves as the nanoliquid technology company. So we look at all the myriads of different ag inputs in the whole fertilizer and chemical side of things, and you have your traditional fertilizers, commodity fertilizers. You have your specialty fertilizers, you have your biologicals. When it comes to crop protection, you have your insecticides, your pesticides, your herbicides. You have your adjuvants, your surfactants. We believe that we have created the newest input in agriculture, and that is nanoliquid. So we are the Nanoliquid Technology Company. Our mission at AquaYield is to provide our customers with quality products and technologies that improve the performance of crop inputs while paving the way to a sustainable agriculture. We're committed to sustainable farming, and we're very excited about the opportunities that face us as we're in the race to 2050 and feeding 9.5 billion mouths on this earth. Our commitment is to provide education, continued research, and stellar support for our customers, complete with a wholesome brand culture. Next slide, please. So a quick company overview. AquaYield was founded in 2014 by farmers, and those farmers learned that they could leverage the potential of nanotechnology that had been found to be effective in their own farming operations. Next slide. We've developed formulation processes and applications that have demonstrated dramatic improvements in nutrient and plant protectant absorption rates. Next slide. And since our launch, AquaYield has developed a full suite of nanoliquid plant nutrition and protection products, and they're now being sold through a myriad of distribution channels. So we have an omni-channel distribution strategy. Next, please. We have numerous independent studies and farmer testimonials that have verified the efficacy of AquaYield products. And what we've been able to showcase is that we can reduce plant input costs, we can speed growth, and most importantly to many people, increase yields. Great photo of you, Tracy, by the way. Next slide. Our technology and products are protected by patents issued and pending in the United States and in several major agricultural markets abroad. Next. And we've seen that growers around the world are yielding many benefits of using our nanoliquids. Why is that happening? Well, they're applying less salt. They're seeing that our suite of nanoliquid products are highly compatible with all the myriad of agricultural inputs. Our products are clean and easy to handle, can be tank mixed or stacked into almost every tank. We have hardly any mixing issues. Lastly, our products are safe for the environment. And most importantly, we have proven performance. Next slide.
There we go.
So what we've been able to conduct from 2014 to 2020 is we've had over 750 independent trials. And what we've been able to see is that there's an average of a 3-to-1 return on investment that has been determined. If you'd like to learn more about some of our different product development, trials, and testimonials, we ask you to go to aquayield.com. And for some more even testimonials, I'd recommend everyone to go to our YouTube channel, where we have over 80 testimonials on our YouTube site. When I checked last, a lot of our competitors, the nearest company had maybe 10 testimonials. So it really, there's a lot of proof in our concept and where we're going. Next slide, please. So when it comes to our production overview, we like to just spend a little bit of time about telling people how we make what we do. So when it comes to what we do at AquaYield, what we do is we first take water and we put it into ultra purified form. Following that, we source and manufacture a number of different nanoparticles. And then what we do after creating those nanoparticles is we inject those nanoparticles with our ultra purified water. And that's what creates our what we call our ultra base, and what we put into almost all of the different suite of products that are offered. Then we combine those myriad of products from our warehouse into liquid fertilizers, and that's how we ship it out the door. Next slide, please. We have a very exciting suite of products. Our number one seller is at the top. That's Nano Pro. It's essentially a deliverer for all crop protection chemistries. Then we have macronutrient applications such as our Nano N Plus, NanoFos, Nano-K. And then we have blends of macros such as Nano Grow, Nano Stress, and Nano CS. And then we have 4 micronutrient applications: our Nano Zinc, Nano Iron, Nano Pack, Nano Calci. And then we have 3 new organic products that we just launched this year, as well as Nano Iron with our CX Pro, our Omni Grow, and our Omni Pro. So we believe that our suite of products can fit all conventional ag and suite of organic products. And with that said, we'll turn the time over to Dr. Landon Bunderson on our technology.
Thanks, Clark. When Clark asked me to do this webinar and told me it was going to be called The Secret Sauce, I asked him if I could tell everybody what the secret sauce was. And he said no. And I said, I think it would be really cool if we did. It'd be a great day to do it. And with much prodding, I was able to convince him. So we've never told anybody this before, but we're actually using moon dust that was stolen from NASA in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, that's April Fool's. I'm sorry, somebody had to do something. Okay, so want to kind of make this a little bit more narrative than I usually do on webinars, and kind of talk you through my introduction to the nanotechnology and how I learned about it, and how we developed the technology. So I'm going to kind of weave that through the description of the technology as I talk about this. So what I've got here on the screen is the sample that Clark sent to me when I was a postdoc at Iowa State. He called me in mid-April, early April of 2014, and he said, hey, we've invested in some nanotechnology and we're struggling to understand it. We want to make it work every time and we need some help. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. Let's do it. So I had him send me a sample of the crude initial technology. And I took it down to the electron microscope lab and was somewhat skeptical that there would be nanoparticles in the solution, and that they were actually doing something. A lot of snake oil in and around farming, and put the sample on the electron microscope, and immediately we had nanoparticles pop up, lots and lots of nanoparticles. In those days, they varied a lot in size. And this was the cheap electron microscope. So these images don't even look very 3D. The dots, the dark, the light grainy stuff in the background is really just the surface that we place the nanoparticles on. The dark splotches you see there are the actual nanoparticles. And I said, great, we've got nanoparticles. Let's do this. So we started diving into what it was, how it worked, and how can we make it better. And the first year, 2014, I consulted for AquaYield for a full year before I went on full time. And the first thing that they had me do was fly down to Florida, because that's where we were seeing a bunch of success on turfgrass, on citrus, on various other crops, melons and things like that. And so I started seeing it firsthand, talking to people about how they're applying it, setting up little trials and contracting with some people on some trials, and really started cutting my teeth on it. Let's go to the next slide. And we were trying to figure out how do we make this not just good, not just sometimes home runs, but home runs every time. And we had a small budget, and we were really just dipping our toe into this nanotechnology. And I got $100 from Clark to set up this little grow room in my bedroom. So this in the middle of the winter in Iowa, January 2015 is when I started doing this, and it was a nice little glow because it's gray and dark and miserable. And so I set up this little corn experiment, and I had these different treatments, and trying to get at, when I do this, does magic happen? When I do this, does magic happen? So I had 4 treatments. You can see here's the copper levels in the lower right-hand corner. I'm not going to tell you the treatments. I'm not going to tell you what we were looking at. Some of it's proprietary and some of it's patented. But treatment number 3 there, the copper levels were through the roof. And I got the tissue samples back. You know, we had some replication here, pulled the statistics, and got to look at it. And I said, wow, this is it. This is how it works. And as you'll notice, this is almost a full year after we started really working on. I started working on this, and it was more than a full year after AquaYield really got started. And lo and behold, we figured it out. We had what we needed to make things happen. Let's go to the next slide, Jenny, or Jim, I mean, whoever. Okay, so the magic that was happening was this nanoparticle, and particularly a specific nanoparticle and a specific chemical conformation. We had some very specific things that we had to do to make the magic happen. But once we had kind of optimized that, I started really diving into why is this working and how is this working? And when we talk about the nanotechnologies, we always show this slide, even if it's briefly. And I'm going to do it briefly here. The AquaYield nanoparticles about 100 nanometers. That's 1,000 times bigger than a calcium ion and 1,000 times smaller than a plant cell in approximation. That same relationship exists between a poppy seed, a 40-inch tractor tire, and a pivot irrigation system that's a little bit bigger than 3/4 of a mile in diameter. And so you can imagine a bunch of poppy seeds being stuffed into a tractor tire, and then the tractor tire is rolled up to the pivot irrigation system, and the irrigation, that giant field dwarfs that tractor tire in size. Still plenty of room there. But the important thing about the nanotechnology was that it is the convergence of chemistry and physics. And I often say that, and I'll, in subsequent slides, I'm going to talk more about that, but just at a high level, the reason that a nanoparticle is cool is that it has a very small volume and a very high surface area in relation to that. That means the surface is highly reactive. That means the surface does lots of cool things. And I'll talk about some of that here in a second. But I want to talk through some examples of nanotechnology that are happening in everyday life. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. There is I'm not a computer nerd, I'm a plant nerd, but there in computers, there is a law called it's a phenomenon called Moore's law. And basically it goes like this. The number of transistors on microchips doubles every 2 years. That means that the computing power on our microchips doubles every 2 years. That's why I can have an iPhone in my pocket and do amazing things instead of a radio flyer wagon pulling a refrigerator-sized computer around to do the same thing, which is what you would have had to do, a dozen years ago or so. This is possible because of nanotechnology. The transistors that we're using now are very, very small. They're nanoscale. And because you can put nano-sized transistors on these microchips, that means you can cram a whole bunch of them on there. And that nanotechnology exists in all of your phones and all of your computers that are compact and have high computing power. Also, just as an aside, the cost of computing is dropping rapidly. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I love this one. So in 2005, the bicycle company BMC announced that the bicycle that was being used by Landis here was going to be a nanotube frame. And this nanotube frame was going to weigh 2.2 pounds, was revolutionary in 2005. It was going to be for the 2006 race. So what they do with bicycles with carbon nanotubes is they just have a whole bunch of fibers made out of carbon that look like this in the upper right-hand corner. And they kind of weave all of these nanoscale tubes together, these fibers. They're very strong and they're very light. And then they put an epoxy over it and they can make a very strong and light bike frame. And I can't remember his first name, Greg Landis, George Landis, Greg Landis. He won the Tour de France with this bike. He also got, he tested positive for doping and had to had to give up the title, but he did win the race. And in part, it was definitely due to this very light, very advanced bicycle that was super light, especially for that era. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Ever since the beginning of AquaYield, we've been talking about how nanomedicine is actually a a viable and real field, and people are using nanoparticles in medicine to deliver things efficiently. And that actually gives us some conferred legitimacy. It works, and it's proven over and over in nanomedicine. And actually, I think agriculture is about to surpass nanomedicine in the number and types of nanotechnologies, if you count our line of products that exist legally, that are actually sold, that are FDA approved. So we're catching up. But here's a cool example. So there is a particular form of pancreatic cancer that is really bad. The cells metastasize rapidly. That means they're releasing cells, and it's not a compact tumor, but the cells are getting into the bloodstream, and the cancer can spread rapidly. There's a drug that I can't pronounce, but I'm going to call it irinotecan, that has been a common treatment in pancreatic cancer for some time. With the addition of a nanoparticle, so they encapsulated a bunch of these molecules in a nanoparticle. With the addition of that nanoparticle, they were able to develop a treatment regime that gave pancreatic cancer sufferers a 3x survival rate. And this is over a shorter, like a five-year period. And I don't know a lot about nanomedicine, so I can't tell you all of the things involved in this, but the 3x survival rate is owed wholly to this nanoparticle, and that the ability to get this drug where it needs to go and get it into these cancer cells with high efficiency. So you're getting the dose, the kill dose that you need. If that doesn't sound familiar to the kinds of things that we're doing, it should. We are all about getting a dosage into the plant. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I have a biology undergraduate degree, and in biology, we had to take cell biology, we had to take a half dozen classes where we were going over the mechanisms within the cell. And I remember vividly learning about this process, endocytosis, that we talk about. This is the process that a nanoparticle is absorbed by the cell membrane. And essentially what it is an envelope that is created by that liquid, almost liquid, non-sturdy membrane, and then it just kind of pulls it in. This mechanism, as I was looking, once we figured out our process, once we started seeing real results, once we kind of got our mechanisms going, I dove in deeply to the literature to try and figure out, how does this work? How do I make it better? And this paper came up showing endocytosis, and I went, of course, I learned about this. I learned about this in my undergraduate degree. The endocytotic process, endocytosis, is unique to nanoscale particles. And that is something that only a nanofertilizer can do, can be absorbed through this process. And I'm going to circle back to this, but when we formulate fertilizers, we're thinking about how do we get as much fertilizer into the plant as possible. And with the addition of endocytosis and the already existing proton pumps and diffusion, we're coming at this 3 different ways. And that's part of the reason that we're getting a 25% bump in AI, for example, in glyphosate, things like that. Let's go to the next slide. So when I showed the nanomedicine example, you saw their diagram, which is not unlike our diagram. The difference between their nanoparticle and ours is a solid core silica-based nanoparticle that can be filled with all kinds of goodies, just like that nanoparticle that you saw can be filled with goodies. But our nanoparticle is also coated with goodies. And because we can coat with ions or any active ingredient, we can punch above our weight. We can deliver more than those nanomedicine things, and that's why I'm starting to think that we're ahead of nanomedicine in some ways. Our payloads are immense, and we can do a lot with a very little. And in the early days when we came out with our jugged products, people were pretty skeptical about some of our rates, and we would prove ourselves time and time again. And this is the reason for this. We can load up a nanoparticle with a ton of material. Let's go to the next slide. And I can't remember exactly what the next slide is, so I have to wait for it to pop up. Oh yes, of course. So I talk about this one. I know a lot of you have heard me describe this particular slide and this particular information several times. I'm going to try and do it slightly differently this time. And I'm going to put it like this. When you're looking at the difference between a nanoliquid fertilizer and a regular fertilizer, the immediate difference in solution, whether it's in your tank or injected or still in the jug, is that our fertilizer, at least a lot of it, is encapsulated, not all of it, but a lot of it is encapsulated in a nanoparticle. And the cool thing about being encapsulated in a nanoparticle is that the particles act like particles, not chemistry. So the differences are particles don't bind with soil, with other nanoparticles don't bind with soil particles. Nanoparticles protect fertilizers and other things from precipitation. That means they don't form insoluble salts with things and become lost in your soil or in your water with other impurities. They do make physical contact with plant surfaces. Chemistries don't really make physical contact with plant surfaces. Particles do. That means if there's a crack, if there's a hair, if there's a stomate, if there are lenticels, if there are aberrations in your root hairs, the nanoparticle is going to find that and wedge its way in there. They also make physical contact with soil particles. They don't bind, but they do make physical contact. And what that means is we don't leach through the soil because that nanoparticle is bouncing off of those soil particles. The cool thing about these nanoparticles, while they're acting like particles in the way that I just described, the chemistry that we're using prevents them from doing some cool things. And I listed them, but I listed them under the lens of a particle, but they prevent precipitation. They prevent leaching. That's a chemical phenomenon because you're dissolved in the water and you're moving downward. And the overall result is better absorption. And that list of what they do and what they don't do that I just mentioned is a big part of that. And then finally, once the nanoparticle lodges into a plant part, penetrates the cuticle and the cell wall, it comes in contact to that cell membrane. And that is going to go, something is here. It could be good or bad. I'm going to absorb it through endocytosis. And so it's going to bring it in, like that slide I showed you, and put it in a micelle. And it's going to quarantine it. In that micelle, it's going to send in enzymes and say, what is this? Break it down. Let's take all the ions out. Let's take all the amino acids out. Anything that's good, we're going to take out. And then there's even a process where the nanoparticle can be expelled or just stored inside the plant. I'll tell you what, the phone call that I got from Clark in 2014, I never would have guessed that it would lead to what we're doing today. I never would have guessed when I saw the electron micrographs, those little particles, that they would actually become the machine that is Aqua-Yield, that would build and get on millions of acres and improve the efficacy of AI and the efficiency of nutrients. This has been a wild ride for me, and this is a slightly different presentation than I normally do, but I think that's my last slide, right, Jim?
We'll find out. Yep, it sure is. You
Okay.
were right.
That's it. I'm done.
All done? All right, very good, Landon. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And it's amazing, as many webinars as we do and presentations that we all do, the more you can actually listen to Landon. There's two things I always take away. Number one, it's his passion. Number two, there's always something new as far as positioning or talking about our technology that I pick up. And the same with Clark as well. As much as I interact with Clark, the passion is, you just can't not see that and feel it when you talk with him. And I've only been here a short 2+ years, and from the history that Landon said back in 2014, he never would have thought we would be where we are today. That was 2 years ago. It wasn't that long when I first started, but yeah, the changes, the growth that we've seen has just been unbelievable. So we thank all our customers for that, because without you, we wouldn't probably be having this webinar. So with that, I've got one slide, and a lot of people will probably be very happy. It's not 10, it's not 20. It's one slide, and it's really to kind of wrap things up and bring everything home. We've had a series of, this is our 5th webinar in our spring series, and we're definitely going to continue these into the summer. But we know we're going to take a little bit of a break as people get busy planting and in the field. And, we don't want to take up time. We want you to be out with your customers and doing what you need to do to make money and be successful. But when we get into the summer months, we want to plan on having a series of webinars again. And we want to try to do them from the field. We're still trying to work out a few things. Clark and Jenny and I are kicking around, how can we do things but make it a high quality of value where we can actually be in the field. We can dig up some plants. We can show everybody, what the technology is doing. So keep your eye out for that this summer. We definitely want to continue the series. We think it's been very successful. So bringing everything home, what can nanotechnology, what can our nano liquids do for you? I mean, I've been telling customers, dealers, growers this for the last 2+ years. They're all about tools. It gives you something to present to take care of a problem. It's a solution. So I call it my toolbox. The last thing we want to do is dump all of our tools out in front of somebody and kind of scratch our head. Well, which one do you think will work the best? And we really leave that up to, our regional managers, our agronomists, to work with our dealers and our grower customers and find what that right tool is for you to provide that solution to what your problem is. It could be tough to control weeds. It could be getting more phosphorus into your plant. I mean, you name it, because everybody's different. So keep in mind, that's kind of how we do things. We like to talk to customers, understand their needs, and then find the right fit. So it's all about finding that tool that'll fit for you. One of the early slides that Clark showed, we've done well over 700 trials across the entire country. And actually some are international trials as well. And we consistently see a return on investment. We've been in that 3-to-1 return for years. And when you combine all the data, it's proven time and again. Actually, I think that return is probably going to go up, this year and next year if commodity prices stay where they are. I mean, we should be really seeing that 5, 6, 7-to-1 return as the price of corn, the price of cotton. I mean, you name it, continues to be at not record highs, but pretty high for customers. So
it is record high.
Keep that in mind. We have a challenging market today. I mean, everybody knows that. We're not talking just about freight and things, but volatility in that fertilizer market. Prices have been going up, not down, unfortunately. So we have solutions that will really help you deliver to your customers on how to help with their problems. And it might not be an agronomic. It might be that high price fertilizer that, they can only get maybe 60% of what they need because they're cut off or allocated. So our tools help stretch some of those acres. So keep that in mind when you're talking with your customers as well. We talk about these logistical challenges and freight. Thank goodness we have an outstanding operations team in our warehouse getting the product shipped out daily to everybody, because I would not want to be the one dealing with freight today. And our solutions really help if we can go out at reduced rates, not all the time, but a lot of the time, and that will help you get more acres out of that one truckload or that jug. I mean, you name it. So we can really help alleviate some of the challenging logistics that we face today. You know, we talk a lot about savings. You know, we do factor that into our 3-to-1 return, but there's also that advantage of a higher crop response, whether it's yield, could be quality. And with the way prices are today, you know, you got $5+ corn, soybeans, I think they're north of $14 a bushel. We need to really help growers squeeze every bushel they can to
Hi,
take
dear.
advantage of these market prices.
Yeah, I had my tennis shoes on and should have had
I
boots.
gotta turn somebody on mute. Excuse me here.
Everything
There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, if we can provide a tool to not only maybe save on some of those logistical things, but also add to that bottom line by growing your yield, you know, that's what our solutions will do for you today. So some of the many challenges in production, you know, a lot of the things I just talked about were maybe more market or event, if you will, situations. But when we talk about ag production, you know, the nanotechnology that Landon mentioned for that bicycle, you know, weighing only 2 pounds or whatever that weight was, you know, we can do that as well. If you just think, okay, well, you're getting more out of an output there, let's get more of an output in our nutrient use efficiency. So how can we get more nutrients into the plant with a nano-type technology? And we see that time and time again. And one of the main products that we're really focused on here that I'll talk about here for a few seconds, you know, our Nano-N+. If you watch the webinar series earlier in the season, you know, we're talking a lot about nitrogen, the high costs. We need to get more nitrogen into the plant and less into the environment. So we really want growers to be able to take advantage of what they're buying and what they're putting into their field. How can they get more of those nitrogen ions into the plant? Well, Nano-N is one of the best tools for delivery that I've seen in my, you know, 30-year career in this industry. So keep that in mind when we're facing those higher prices of UAN. Let's get more nitrogen into the plant. As you grow your yield, your actual bushels or nitrogen use efficiency goes up. And that's a good thing for growers. That's a good thing for the environment. I'm sure if I asked and I could see everybody who has tough to control weeds, I'd see 100% of the hands go up. Our NanoPro product is unlike anything else out there. I know there's a lot of proprietary special adjuvants and additives to, you know, make your glyphosate or, you know, you name it, perform better. But there's nothing out there that can be as consistent and across a broad spectrum, not only of tough to control weeds, but also many of the products in the crop input market that we're using today, fungicides, you know, insecticides, herbicides, you name it. NanoPro has a fit. You know, I said this after I was on board for maybe about a month back in January of 2020, and I learned that if everything they're telling me and that I'm seeing about NanoPro through all the data, there's no reason why NanoPro is not in every tank mix going across every acre in this country and or where we're selling it. So you have to have that mindset. NanoPro should be your lead product. If you're new to this webinar series, whether you're a new grower or a new dealer or even a prospect, you know, keep in mind that NanoPro, it's very easy to implement, low use rate, user friendly. It has high compatibility with many of the products we work with today. Excuse me. And it's cost effective, where it's not a big check to write just to try it and take a look at it. And once you see that technology, especially with a herbicide, because you should see that within a day or two, and then you're like, okay, everything they've said about Nanoliquid is real. There must have been more in that plant because it's dead. The other side where I didn't use NanoPro, it's still living. Yeah, it might be starting to curl up or whatever, starting to be impacted, but it's not dead or the further death cycle over on the NanoPro treated side. So good way to test the technology and see it work for yourself on your farm or with your customers. And then the last thing I'll talk about is just the user friendliness of our products. There's a lot out there on the market today that could be high rates. You know, I've heard lots of horror stories about other products. I'm not going to name any names where, you know, the compatibility or there's an inch or two of sludge in every jug that I dump out. We don't we don't have any of those issues at all. It's a very clean product. And like I mentioned, that low use rate, growers love it because it's not adding a whole nother lineup of products in their shed or on their tender truck or what they have to mix at the field. We look about, you've heard me talk about Nano CS an awful lot. And we actually had one webinar just strictly on that product. It's probably the most user-friendly product out there. When you look at, if you can implement 6 ounces of Nano CS for crop starter into your liquid in furrow or at planting starter program, and then you have the ability to reduce the volume that you're handling. Maybe you're going from 5 gallons down to 4 or 3, or vice versa, or going from 6 down to 3. Now you've got 50% less product to handle. And there's no other products out there that can help you do that other than our Nanoliquid technology. So just kind of wanted to wrap that up and bring it all home, talk about a few of our products we've highlighted going into spring. We appreciate everybody's time. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. So if you want to, if you want to ask a question, you can type it in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and blurb it out there. Any questions, anybody?
Hey, Jim, this is Tracy. I just wanted to comment on Landon's statement about, reducing leachability. And I'm sure he's probably talking about nitrogen, but on the flip side, we're actually moving phos down deeper in the profile, since it's usually less mobile in the soil. So that's another really nice benefit we see with nanophos.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tracy. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper into what's going on in the soil, our nanoparticles are going to travel those microcapillaries that are created by the mass flow of water that roots pull from, right? So there's these little channels that the roots create when they draw from the water in the soil. And nanoparticles are definitely small enough to get into those microchannels and move all around in there. The microchannels are not going to exist below the soil, below the rhizosphere, below where the roots are. And so that's kind of where you're going to bottom out, likely.
Good stuff. We did have one question come in, and I don't know the answers. So Landon or Chris Hendrickson, if you're on, would Nano Pro work well with Movento? And I don't know what Movento is. So
absolutely, we have good experience with Movento, and it's not theoretical. We know it does, and I can't quote numbers off the top of my head. I was trying to see if I could pull something, but absolutely it would work. It does work well with Movento.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we put Nano Pro, or actually it was Nano N Plus with Movento on citrus, and had excellent results.
Great.
We've been using the Nano P and Nano K for about a year and a half now. And all the things that you were talking about with Nano N, which we just got our first 2.5 gallons this week. We haven't used it yet, but we'll use it next week. What are we going to see different than what we already saw out of the P and K?
Landon, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Different from the P and K as compared to other products. Did you say one specifically?
The Nano N.
Oh, the Nano N. The Nano N is cool because we're using a different nanoparticle there. And there are actually some synergistic effects between the two nanoparticles. So even if you're using another nano product, the addition of Nano N gives you a double whammy with nanoparticles. And that Nano N Plus particle is designed specifically for nitrogen.
And it is the one in our suite of products that's going to move the needle on nitrogen absorption.
Okay.
Is that answering your question, or was there something else?
Well, I mean, we've just seen a massive uptick with, we've had to back rates down on, well, I mean, obviously we had to back the rates down on our P and K because we've been using it to add it to our herbicides. I mean, we've backed our rates way off on herbicide to half, sometimes less than half rate. And then some of our, we grow sod. So like centipede, we spray 3 different products together, and we've had to back the P and K down to less than an ounce per acre of each because we were getting a burn on the grass, which we've never gotten before because the uptake's so high. So I was just curious if we're gonna have the same issues with the Nano-Yield.
Not likely burn issues, but I think what you'll find is much higher efficiency, and that could very well lead to a reduction of rates. But it depends on what you're doing. You're down there in Florida right now, you're pushing grass as hard as you can, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're just now starting. We were in the 40s last week, so we're out of the woods now, and we've been getting a lot of rain. So yeah, we're putting our first APA dry out next week, and then we've already put out P and K with a liquid nitrogen or water soluble nitrogen with it. So now that we've got this Nano in, we're going to put it out on some test blocks this coming week, where we're going to put out our dry fertilizer to see the differences.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
One quick reminder, we do have another question, but one quick reminder, don't forget to go to the aquayield.com/webinars to sign up for the 10-gallon giveaway. If you have your chat box open or can open it, you'll see there's a link right there. You can easily just click on that for convenience or go to the website itself. So just want to remind everyone to do that. And then another question, I know Landon, you probably have some experience and have answered this in the past, but a lot of people do ask, can we use NanoPro with a pre-emergent herbicide and will it work well? So what's your answer to that?
Yeah, I do get this question a lot, and we haven't ever done any formal trials on pre-emergent herbicides, but when people ask me this question, I say, it's a great thing to try, certainly won't hurt it. So give it a try. And we have gotten positive feedback on that, but we definitely do want to do some trials on that so we can characterize and attach, a claim to that. We can make a recommendation on how it's going to affect it and what you can expect.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what we've been doing with pennant and atrazine mixed together after we've harvested sod. Austin Ham down here has got us set up where we're spraying 2 ounces of P, 2 ounces of K, full rate of atrazine and half rate of pennant. And I can tell you right now, you can go in the middle of the summer in Florida for 4 months and never have any breakthrough. And we were getting constant breakthrough before we started using the P and the K.
Wow.
Pretty good.
That's great feedback. We appreciate that. And I think, yeah, just to add to what Landon said, we do have growers using NanoPro with a pre-emergent, but we've never done a formal trial and measured, did it have better weed control or how did it carry us longer into the season for that residual control? So we're definitely open if anyone wants to try that. And I think we do have some trials, if Joe Flum's on, I think out east this year, that will actually measure that as a third party. So Austin, did you have something to add?
I was just saying down here with sod, like with John, we've been able to consistently cut pennant or dual from a quart to the acre to about a pint and a half and getting the same results. We haven't done formal trials, but where we've done it, it's lasted the 6 to 8 weeks that it needs to last. So with pennant costing $250 a gallon, and you can cut it, a pint or half a pint, that's significant dollars And as well as with atrazine, we've cut atrazine where guys are doing 1.5 quarts to basically 1 quart.
Great. Thanks for that input. It's appreciated.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We're just about up to our full hour. We know everyone's busy. We appreciate your time. Any last questions or comments? Doesn't even have to be a question. All right. If not, we wish everybody to have a great day, great weekend. And thanks for your time. And we will have this recorded. We'll get that out on the website at some point. And please just go ahead and register for that free giveaway. Don't miss out on 10 gallons of Nano-N Plus. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.